Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. So we are hosting this webinar as part of Selfridge's Project Earth program, and today I'll be discussing future solutions for fashion and sustainability with the Institute of Digital Fashion co-founders Leanne Elliott-Young and Katy Tay.
Hello.
We will have some time at the end for questions, but also feel free to drop questions in the chat box throughout the whole time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce our lovely co-founders. So first up, we have Katy Tay. Round of applause for you.
Hello. Thank you.
So Kat has worked as a creative director and an experienced digital garment specialist for over 5 years. A pioneer in the 3D fashion field, Katy Tay has paved the way in the industry for new, more sustainable and democratic practices, leading them to work with notable brands such as Alexander Wang, Balenciaga, Off-White and Raf Simons. Katy also sits as the director of progressive support network DigiGirl, championing women, intersex, trans folk, and non-binary people who specialize in 3D design and animation. And then we also have Leanne Elliott-Young. So Leanne has spent 15 years in the industry inventing, incubating, and installing creative concepts for future-faced living. As the founder of Communiste, an ideas institute hosting live events, brand partnerships, and consultancy, Leanne is always at the forefront of fashion discussions, touching on important topics such as sustainability, young creatives, and tech, partnering with brands and platforms such as Dave's, Selfridges, BSC, Extinction Rebellion, LFC, just to name a few. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited to host.
Thank you so much for interviewing us. Very excited about this.
Of course. So I wanted to firstly talk about the Institute of Digital Fashion. So obviously you two joined forces, and I think it's such a dream team to produce this wonderful baby. I just wanted to know, why did you feel that there was a need for an institution like this?
I think for a long time the industry's been stuck, and there's lots of kind of hierarchical systems, and the tradition of fashion meant that for a long time there wasn't much change. We launched mid pandemic, so in a real kind of social political quagmire. We came together after we were sitting on a panel actually, days talking about the future of fashion, and we kind of all of our every answer, our thoughts, our ethos were just circling around each other. So at that point, we were discussing how we could partner, how we could work together as Communiste and DigiGirl. And then when we were kind of discussing that, we actually, so many of the pain points in the industry, we felt that there was some, we could muster up together, come together and kind of build some solutions, specifically talking about sustainability, diversity and inclusion, and looking at how digital can be more than a quick fix. So that's kind of, we were that at that point we were like, okay, let's push this forward and let's birth the institute. So here's
I was going to say as well, like digital fashion, like it's been around for like a long time, but just recently with COVID, it's like soared into like the forefront of fashion. So it felt right to kind of be like, okay, we've been working in this area for quite a while, like we understand it, let's create an institution that can kind of create a standard of quality and fair pay within the industry as well.
Because that's one of the pain points, is this kind of digital quick fix, and really there's no like litmus test of authority on what to pay, but also what it means to be a digital maker. So we're really looking at how we can demystify that and bring some of the craft and artisan into that practice for some of the kind of solutions for a more sustainable future, but a more democratic one.
So you guys, I mean, it's really exciting. You guys are kind of at the forefront of this digital movement. It's very progressive, and it's really kind of rooted in sustainability, and is such a great answer for a kind of unregulated and quite biased industry, previously biased industry. What is it that you guys kind of aim to do, or what is it that you find yourself doing on a day-to-day? Because I can imagine it's whilst it's very exciting being so progressive, it also means that there hasn't been a path paved out for you. So I was wondering if you could maybe explain kind of what your day-to-day is and what your goals are.
I was going to say it's been hectic.
The days go into the nights go into the days. We've got teams, or our team extends. We work kind of very modular, and we've got teams that are kind of, we're global. I hate that buzzword, but that's definitely it. We've got people all over the globe that are working on projects with lots of different disciplines. But so right now I think it's a really exciting time, because what we're doing, a lot of the work is strategy and saying no, and asking people to reevaluate what their processes are. Specifically thinking around lots of, brands or individuals that we work with want to mirror some of the processes we've seen in the past. So did showrooms, shows, etc. So what we're looking at, ways in which we can build interesting solutions to thinking outside of the box and breaking some of those structures of the system. So it's really looking at ways to think freely and kind of open up those thought patterns and vision proof what the future can be, considering specifically around, sustainability is such a big one, because for a long time the fashion industry has been the kind of big beast that didn't really want to listen to, again, the pain points. So, now people are, because transparency is something that consumers also push for now, we're seeing that actually a lot of brands are kind of listening a bit more, but a lot of the work is a kind of strategizing as to how we can build digital solutions and new digital narratives that don't mirror the past, but think about a new future.
Mm-hmm.
I think tech and the digital world is so interesting and important anyway, and like you've kind of touched on, fashion obviously had some room for improvement. With COVID and everything else that's gone on, do you feel like there has been a shift or like a level of acceptance to a more digital way of life? Because for me personally, it feels like during lockdown and during times where travel and kind of free movement wasn't as accessible, the digital became so important. And I think a lot of people in fashion kind of ended up taking a look at themselves and thinking, is this really how we need to go about this? Is there things that need to be changed? So do you feel that shift as well?
Yeah, I think
made things easier, didn't it? Like that kind of like starting those conversations.
Yeah, I think when it's like a necessity, when you have to do it, it will force you into that mindset ultimately. And like we've had so many emails from people who want to replicate their show somehow. Like it's been insane through COVID. I think it has definitely pushed people in the right direction to take it more seriously, maybe. And that's what we're here to help with.
Yeah, because for a long time it just felt like, I think that's why it was so such a magnificent moment where we sat on that panel together, because I was like, at last someone's speaking the same bloody language as me and has got the same standpoints and the same ethos, and it was really exciting, because for a long while digital was like the cherry on the cake. It was we were kind of the aliens in the corner talking about, so many people used to mock me, Liam Hodges, one of the IRL, URL, like literally, because I was talking about continually about the IRL and URL unison and how important it was. And then now finally everybody's, we're here, it's a webinar, and we're discussing the kind of future of the fashion industry, just approaching London Fashion Week, and we're in a room with hundreds of other people all at once, and and still in the studio. It's these kind of moments where you realize that technology has got so many solutions to how to bring people together. But one of the things we do say a lot of the time is never tech for tech's sake. And we absolutely believe in weaving the online and offline together. So impregnating some of the craft and artisan and beauty of garments, but being able to layer them with digital assets. That means that you can deliver more. So a lot of people are kind of scared of tech in that way, because they feel that it's replacing the physical. But what we really believe in is weaving the two together, and the importance of that. The narratives that you can build with digital. You can load audio and the mood board and the sentiment of the collection into the garment itself, and they're really interesting points. If you think around that, consumers want more, not only with transparency, but also they want to understand more. So you can give them more information, like where has this product been, where was it made, who made it, and you can deliver stories from those places. Again, rooting it back to sustainability. If you think about loading all of that into one digital asset, that really works hard. And I think that's the thing as well. Like, a digital asset can work really hard. It can go further. It can talk to more people, but it can hold more of the emotive and the kind of the stories that fashion weaves so beautifully through campaigns and through shows. This can all be in one place at one time.
And we'll talk like a bit more later about that relationship between IRL and URL in the industry and kind of how they integrate. For now, I just wanted a little bit more background, Kat, on how you actually create the 3D models, because from my understanding, it's more your side to do with the kind of actual construction and the kind of weaving of these models. So would you mind just going into a bit more detail of like what are the technicalities? And because I've personally could put my hands up and say I would have no clue even where to start.
It's a new language. It's a whole new language.
Should
we play the video, Kat? Do you want to talk through the Charlie? Would you like to play video one?
So
what have we got here?
In terms of, obviously there's so many different parts of like a 3D model. There's the clothing, there's the avatar, there's the environment. But if we were to talk about the clothing specifically, as you can see on this video, this is a software called Cloth 3D. It's a gravity simulating software. So the square that you see to the square that you see to the left, when you press the simulation button, the 3D space has gravity properties within it. So then the square on the the square on the right is where you do your pattern cutting. So anything that you do on the right will go into the left, and then you press the simulation button and then it will free fall. So yeah, there's digital construction, which is exactly the same as in real life, and also digital pattern cutting. So it's like weaving those two together. If you were to pattern cut in real life, it's basically exactly the same, almost. So it's unifying those two things. Yeah.
Does it
say
yeah?
That's why a lot of people who know how to pattern cut choose to kind of push their skills into Cloth 3D, because they are so closely linked. Like, a lot of the designers that use Cloth 3D haven't necessarily come from a 3D background. They've actually come from a fashion background, but they're just teaching themselves these 3D skills because it is so intrinsic with actually physical construction. And then, for example, if you were to have a model, you've also got to give it loads of fabric properties. So this, does that one? Yeah. So so there's different fabric properties. Things like internal dampening. If you increase the internal dampening, it like can change the way that the fabric bounces off the avatar, for example. If you decrease it, it will make the fabric move like it's like floating in the water. So all of these tiny little details that you can edit will make your piece of fabric feel more like denim or feel more like cotton. So it's, the knowledge of fabrics is really important, and how they sit and collide with the body, so that you can really, so that garment there is like chiffon, for example, on the outer side. So we would have given that fabric a really low density so that it can sit kind of like upright and not have like a big drape to it, because chiffon is really light, for example. So there's all of these like tiny little things that come into just the garment side to make it exactly how it would be in real life, or to be like completely like fantastical and crazy.
And I
But
mean, I'm
that's just
assuming it depends. It really depends on what you're making. But what is the kind of timeline for creating a 3D piece?
so I think it depends on uh, what the client has provided us. So what's good about this software, and the skills that we've kind of acquired over the years, is the fact that we can build any garment from nothing, essentially, from like drawings, ideas, conversations, samples. Um, or yeah, so there's like pure fabrication, which might take a little bit longer. Or we can build garments that are like from photographs or from actual physical samples of like a jacket, for example. But it ultimately we can create anything during any time, and it all varies on how complex the garment is. If the garment's going to be animated, what animations the avatar is doing, does the avatar have crazy hair, is the avatar wearing really long heels, that might add to it. So it's all of these layers that in like the physical sense, if you were going to a shoot, it's exactly the same as all of these layers that add up that you've got to kind of like work out. Okay, so is that t-shirt going to fall on top of those trousers? How is the trousers going to be with the shoes? So there's also this kind of digital styling element that we have to kind of go through as well. You make all of the jacket, say like you make a jacket and a trousers, and that's creating like the base, and then you go into like the digital styling kind of side of it. So that it's basically, there's so much in there, but we can make it anytime is the long and short answer.
Yeah. But
No,
also, I
it's
was going
so
to say as well. Okay, go on.
carry on.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think it's why it's so interesting, and why this has been such a, we've had so many conversations, and like a really full inbox at the moment, is because these digital solutions means that for a designer, you don't have to sample, shoot on the models. You literally can have it all kind of at touch points. So if we're thinking around the kind of the regular IRL process of showrooms and how shows work, you'd have your show, and then if you're talking about London Fashion Week, you'll have your show, and then you'd head to Paris for the showroom. At that point, you've created all your samples, and then if a buyer asks you, it would be great to see this with a frill, but we all know the kind of the monotonous relationship with buyers and creatives. It's kind of how they kind of loop in and out of each other's realities, where it's like a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. Well, the creative can then at that point work with a garment simulator and actually change it. So it can be like, okay, well, let's change that. Let's create that addition for you. And that means that at that point, none of these samples actually have to be physically made. And then you're looking at a much more sustainable production, but not only the production as in sampling, but then the orders. If we can showcase the beauty of cloth and how flesh moves in cloth, which I think is one of the things that Catty is, widely recognised for, being a pioneer in digital fashion, is because one of the first individuals who removed the humanity, the personality, and instead showed the fabric moving on flesh. So there was no face there. There was just, you could see the body and in all of its entirety moving in the physicality of the fabric. And it was almost as though don't see that on a show. You don't see that when you're at home. It just took it into this kind of another stratosphere of demonstrating the beauty of that fabric, that physical fabric. So I think that's a really interesting catapult, that you can almost show the fabric in a beyond reality and showcase it in that way. But also as well that you can have all of these solutions without having to create any production, which means zero waste, which is just
amazing.
Yeah, and it's just it's so slow to, we Clo 3D are excellent, and we speak to their team regularly. In fact, Ryan from there is in fact on our board, and it's the reason they working with us and kind of hold Catty Tay in such high regard is because she really broke it she's like, how can we use this to create some solutions? I'm going to break it. I'm going to push it to all of it, the furthest it can possibly go. And I think that's what the industry needs to do, is really push the vision of what the future is to its furthest, to really understand what we can do to save our planet, to keep on creating. And I think one of the things that we've said in our manifesto is, let's sell creativity and not more clothes. And that for anyone is, freak anyone out. But look at the amazing work that Selfridge is doing on Project Earth. They've kind of turned around this, anyone would say that, talk about sustainability, a kind of retailer can't really talk about sustainability. It would be a kind of death wish. But instead, they're looking at feeding more transparency to the consumer, educating more. And that's what everyone wants and actually needs. So to be able to kind of reverse it in that way and just use really, the creative directors of fashion houses becoming, working in digital and thinking of creative solutions rather than just, farming out these identical replicas and editions of one collection. I think that's when it gets really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I find it's very interesting because, as you said, it is such an exciting conversation to have. And obviously, the kind of digital garment industry and tech is, a great addition to the sustainability conversation. But I think on the flip side of excitement, it also brings quite a lot of fear to the fashion industry, because it is kind of the unknown, and it is a bit like, okay, this isn't what we're, like you said, it's almost for many people would kind of seem counterproductive, because they're like, we make clothes and now we're talking about not making clothes. Which I think is always a great line to toe, a bit of fear, a bit of excitement, and most of all very, very necessary. What to kind of argue against that fear and that pushback about maybe turning into more sustainable solutions, what would you kind of argue that the digital world provides?
I mean, if we were to look at one area of, this is just something that's come to my head, but if we're talking about like democratizing the fashion industry as like the shows, how we've spoke before that it feels quite exclusive. Like the digital landscape can break the four walls of the fashion show. And we've talked a lot about the fact that people on the front row, they're kind of buyers or like editors, etc. But that if we talk about someone like Charles Jeffrey, for example, his kind of fan base and his community can't necessarily be at the show. So we can use like digital craft to kind of break down those walls, and we can do like AR experiences, for example, that are like, you could be anywhere in the world, but you could be next to Charles Jeffrey's show through augmented reality. So that's something. Is that a counter argument, or is it just exciting? I don't know.
I think it's like what it's. I think the biggest fear is that everyone will just want a digital avatar version of themselves, which perhaps is a little bit younger, cuter, hotter, or whatever variant of they are that day.
Coming for my job, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But you could be on the other side of the world as your digital avatar, but you could also be doing a modeling job like here. You know what I mean?
Oh.
You could be like,
see, that's a great argument. That's a great counter argument.
Without boarding a plane. That's the thing. I mean, that is the beauty of it. You can, and we're currently working on a project which is digital humans, digital avatars, and what, in the fact that sustainability is a big part of that. The fact that even, with casting, how can you be in all of those places at once? Can you? No, you can't. Whereas if you have a, true to life digital asset of yourself, then it can be put in these environments and it can be put in these places, and it can be, that reality can be rolled out. But also as well, like pushing back against the fear. I mean, the fear is always like, removing the tactile reality, removing it all, and we'll just live in a digital existence. I mean, there are places now where you can just get a kind of very crude digital outfit and sit, wear it online on Instagram. The reason everyone's not doing that is because they do want clothes to touch their flesh. We we want the physical verse, and you know, it's something that will never be lost. But we can weave digital into that. We can, you know, the benefits just are that you can go further into your imagination, you go deeper, and it can go darker and weirder. You know, some of the, we've got a couple of video. I wonder if we just thinking about the kind of environments that can be created as a show. We can go one here, which is video 3. Here we go. So there we go. We can say that. So this is a video of this is a project that we're working on at the moment, and it's a whole new environment. It's a different world. There's, you know, inclusive narratives of bodies, etc. But what's interesting is this has come from the depth of a deep, dark place in Auguste Quetty-Atelier's mind, and this never would have been realised, you know, within a show. So we should play that video, number 3, Charlie.
Is this the one of the rock? Oh yeah.
Isn't it number 3?
Tinnitus creates opportunity to repaint your past in vibrant color, where you choose the light or the dark. Welcome to Tinnitus.
Oh, insane. That's perfectly insane. Like,
yeah. And to do that in physical would be...
It's so expansive, and it's just so kind of limitless what you can do. I mean, I find like that is so cool, the idea that you could then have that as a show, and then also, like we were saying, the kind of democratization then, because that's meaning that everyone can kind of come to that experience, and everyone can get a slice of the pie. But I wanted to it's like, yeah, everyone can be at the party. You don't have to be on any list to get in here, which I think is great, because inclusion is the way forward, of course. I wanted to ask why so we've kind of covered how the digital can increase sustainability, but why, and this might sound quite obvious, but why is sustainability so important in this industry, and especially now in a kind of post-COVID world where we've all had time to think about our impact?
I think it's like so many dichotomies exist in the fashion industry. It's like 1 in 6 people on the globe work in the fashion industry, and that statistic is like insane. But then and it's a $2.5 trillion industry. But then it's like 20% of the global water waste is from the fashion industry. So it's got to be talked about. 1 in 6 individuals on the globe work in fashion. There's a massive responsibility there. Like, we're all a part of it. You can't really remove yourself from it or kind of circumnavigate. We all have got a responsibility for our future, but also for our, you know, our children's futures. You know, we're in a pandemic, we're in a global climate crisis, and I think that is, you know, currently being overshadowed because we're, you know, looking at the short term, but the long term is that it's a problematic future. And now, because everything's paused because of COVID, there was a time to kind of think. Production stopped, and it really felt, you could feel it, you know, and everyone started to think a bit deeper and panic, obviously. But I think at the end of it, everyone needs to think about it and talk about it, and slowly.
I was just going to say that, like, you can't, like, people know that there is a solution there now, like with the whole digital fashion thing. Like, it's like a no-brainer. I think that's why obviously people are like, okay, like now is good.
Because also as well, it's that there's so many. If you can look at a version of yourself on e-com online, and you can, it's not, you know, let's buy 3 different sizes, get it sent to one's house, and then let's see what one fits. If you can look at a version of your body online through a digital avatar that looks a little like you, that's not asking that much, is it? That's what's hilarious about it. It's not even asking that much. Why do they all look like this? So it's kind of actually just taking some of the forecast and drive from the people who are purchasing to go, okay, perhaps we don't want to live in this fantasy anymore. Perhaps it's, let's look at some real bodies or a diverse range of bodies,
Yeah. And then ultimately people will hold on to their clothes for longer if they know already upon purchase that they are going to fit and they are going to look really good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then with digital avatars and that, there is the possibility of that, and it's right there. It's looking you in the, it's right here. But it is, and it just means that all of these pain points can be smoothed out with some, I was saying, quite ballsy, thinking, but actually no, it's kind of like ready solutions. It's just stepping slightly outside of the archaic structure of the industry, which for a long time was like the Titanic heading towards the iceberg. It was too big to, turn around. Everyone's still playing, and you're like, come on, it stopped, and now everyone's thinking. So it feels like, yeah, it's exciting, but people are still obviously still wanting to be a part of the whole circus of it all.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on something really interesting there, Leanne, about the kind of fashion's favour for the sort of archaic, as you put it, way. And I think we can definitely see that. I was going to say, it oftentimes feels like a lot of the industry is based in tradition or seeks its validation in its practices from, under this guise of tradition, and that it's kind of rich in culture. And like, for example, if we take going to an atelier and the amount of kind of human hours and work that go into it, I wanted to kind of ask where you see the meeting point between this tradition of the fashion industry and then the progressiveness of the kind of digital, where we're going with the digital sphere. I was wondering if maybe Leanne, you could maybe touch more on like the attitudes of these meeting points, and then maybe Kat, you could talk about the kind of technicalities of these meeting points. So like, say if there is someone, an old fashion house wanting to, I don't know, do a project or do a show that is a couture show that does have like a lot of human working hours and a lot of like hand sewn, hand stitched detail, how do you then meet that with this progressive kind of digital idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because one of the first live projects that we're working on at the moment is with couture, and it seemed to be a perfect it married perfectly those worlds, digital atelier and a physical one, and it showcased the craft and artisan and mirrored them between the two. You can and obviously for Catty and the team working on that, it was amazing to see how you can sculpt in detail, in digital detail, these elements, and Catty can kind of go into the detail on that. But one of the things were going back to that fear and pain point. It's like, well, we are a couture atelier. How do we show the splendid and awe, and how digital feels fast, and it feels like a space that's much more about Instagram and short bites and short, quick appetites, and all kind of a bit Gen Z, and and it actually, when you sit down and talk with them and work with them and to kind of go through all the detail, you get to showcase and get to highlight and reintroduce some of the splendid detail. And that's the thing, like there's one thing that a campaign can do, but if you think about a digital campaign, you can zoom in, it can float beyond gravity, you can remove gravity. So it can have all of this kind of layer of fantasy, craft and artisan, and then some. And then, you can kind of really take it to a different stratosphere, but also keep the elegant and the eloquent kind of nature of digital couture. Did you want to talk? Yeah, Catty, I mean, some of the separate language you use in those meetings, geometry, like
that being back at school.
I mean, there is a lot that is obviously side by side and feels quite similar, which is quite nice. That there's this like new digital traditional kind of thing that kind of mirrors it, but it kind of takes it further. Like with environments, obviously you kind of lightly touched it on it, Leanne, but with environments, it's a lot like physical set design in the sense of when you're designing it, what do I want here? What do I want in this shot precisely? But obviously you can like take it way further and you can do things that can't physically exist in real life. But I'm trying to think about like the deep like technical side of like developing like fabrics, for example. Like it's completely different and there are similarities, but what is good about digital is the fact that you can race through like 100 different colors within like the space of a minute and be like, no, I don't really like that one. Oh, I'm going to just like make this one have a gradient to there, or I'm going to like switch up that side. And you can do that within seconds. And obviously in the traditional sense, in physical, that would take, you'd probably have to plan in like 2 weeks or more doing that.
And that's
yeah,
some of, I was going to say, some of the samples that we've been working with when they
yeah.
arrived. I think Katy spent 15 minutes just going like this with some velvet. And I was like,
Yeah.
what's
interesting is like,
lovely. Yeah, because you have
there's
to
obviously
create
like
it.
there's like the traditional kind of fabric language of like the warp and the weft and the skive and things like that that still do transfer onto the digital language, but there's this digital kind of fabric language that would never exist in physical, which is like diffuse maps, which is like what is the color of the fabric. There's the normal maps, which is how far does the weave kind of like go up, how much relief has the fabric got, for example. If I was doing like a thick canvas, the normal maps would be like quite like contrasted, for example. There's like roughness maps. If I was to do like a leather, I would make it like not too rough, not too shiny, so it has this nice leather kind of matte shine. So there's all of these new like fabric languages that exist in the digital space that hasn't existed in physical. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's been amazing with these, couture specifically for them, like the man hours, like Katy was saying about the man hours that would have gone into, having this velvet and this velvet within this intense gold beading that's then mirrored. To get that, there's a lot of time in our digital atelier to create that, because you have to use the geometry and understand how the light circles around each reflective part, which is an apps, which means that you have to model each one by hand. So we create them all digitally. But then if they want to change that, the colors of the beading, the fabric that it's on, they want to change the velvet, that would take, like Katy was saying, 2.5 weeks to make by hand. But because we built it, we can swap that out. And I think that has been working with couture in that way. It's just been desperately exciting for the atelier to be able to go, oh my God, let's just make it the bead, and even, can we make it bigger? And we're like, yeah. Whereas they would have had to go and source the specific bead from the artisanal, place to then create them and then to rework them, etc., etc. And instead, we're able to do all of that. And again, like thinking about sustainability, it's making all of these choices quicker, but also keeping the creative journey, which is exciting. So it's, again, about the creative journey.
Well, I was going to say, one of the major issues of and why we kind of needed sustainability was because, fashion is so known for kind of being this constant production line, and especially at the moment being very much go, 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 produce, produce, produce. And when you're physically creating garments, that is so much waste, and just all throughout the chain, there's so much waste. And to know that you can still kind of feed that hunger for new design and new content, and and supply these models is really amazing. So it's not kind of necessarily shutting down the pace of it. It's more just finding alternate ways of providing that aren't then harmful to the environment. But I found it really interesting, Kat, what you were saying about earlier, about how a lot of people who are going into this 3D program and this 3D, what was it called again? The software?
Clo. Clo 3D is the garment simulating
Clothes
software.
3D.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting that you were saying that a lot of people who come from that actually or who come to that are actually from fashion and like from design, because it mirrors a very similar kind of technique and can oftentimes take very similar attention to detail and, you know, the same practice that it would be in the physical sense. Do you think, because I mean, I know I joked about it earlier, but I do think sometimes people think like avatars are coming for our jobs, or like, you know, this kind of fear, again, touching back on the fear aspect, and it's always going to be fearful because it's the unknown. But do you think that there is a shift towards people kind of, you know, moving into the digital sphere, like whether that be set design, whether that be working in atelier, whether that be models? Is there still room for the physical people in the digital industry?
I mean, yeah, I think 100%. We've always said that it's all about weaving the two together. And I've always said that drawings and photographs will always exist within each other as well. But yeah, I've noticed there has been like so many job opportunities within my sphere of digital fashion, but I wouldn't say necessarily that it's getting in the way of physical fashion jobs, because it's just a whole new layer and they work in unison. I was meant to have a job with Adidas a few years ago as a digital fashion designer, and it wouldn't be that I was getting in the way of those jobs. It would be that I would be working alongside the creative team who were designing all of these clothes, and we would work together. So hopefully it's actually making more jobs.
It's a very much collaborative. Yeah, it's very much it seems very much collaborative, and it's also very exciting that it's not kind of either or. You don't have to pick between being 100% physical, 100% digital. Like you said, it's very much interweaving, like of, you know, the two, and it's very much a spectrum.
That's what I've noticed within DigiGirl. Like, people who approach the collective have come from very like physical, maybe set design background, or like textile design, like I did. And they would want to join the collective because they want to push their physical skills that they do know into a digital kind of sphere. So yeah, it's just like it's digital layering basically. It's like, what can I do physically and get the digital layering on top to make something new.
I think that's what's interesting about what you're saying about the roles and the fact that now the roles are broadening. I don't think you know, finding Kathy's jobs would have made any sense. I mean, they still don't make sense to any of my family or parents or the majority of people outside of a metropolis. But you know, things are broadening. I think it's not going to be too long until it will be digital directors of brands where they're using and making digitally rather than it being an activation. And either what you were saying about, and I think there's so many similarities between the garment making and the making of humans. Like, we're not stealing anybody's jobs. It's actually just the fact that really they can work and weave, you know, together and work in unison.
Yeah, because you could have someone who is like really like skilled at clo, but they might not necessarily be the best fashion designer. So obviously that's where those two worlds would then just collide and be like the dream team.
I just want to say, shall we? Because we've got a digital human. Should we talk around? I mean, we've touched on it. The interesting, I know, dreamy. The fact that obviously seeing a version of yourself in the clothes that you may want to purchase for sustainability and for that is I think that's a key talking point. The fact that you know, creating versions of you know, of humanity in all of its splendor should be something which the fashion industry pushes more. Specifically, the fashion industry is one that stands in tradition, whereas with these digital avatars, not only can they be versions of, you know, individuals from throughout history, but they can also be those in the future. So like beyond the normality of human physicality. But then the interesting thing is the very much being able to see yourself in those clothes, and I think that's what's the super interesting point. Did you want to? We've got a, just before we do any questions, we have got a video of the digital making of a digital human. Did you want to play that, Charlie? Shout out to Charlie.
So this is within a software called DAZ 3D, and you can go through so many different variables, and you can produce any sort of human, basically. There's different skin builders, where you can go into details of where all the freckles are, where there's some molds. You can put stretch marks on the skin. Like it's very like there's a lot to go through that you can like edit.
Well, I think it kind of wraps it up nicely about the, you know, it kind of all comes full circle as we're talking about just how much this kind of digital sphere can provide the industry, you know, and how kind of broad you can kind of go with it all. And I think the kind of, you know, parting message is just how exciting this is and how kind of solution based it is as well to so many issues, like mostly sustainability, but also like we're saying inclusivity. But yeah, sorry, finish off on your point on that.
Oh, I was just going to say as well that these are all in fast forward, all of the videos. They actually take 2 to 10 months to create possibly a digital human. That looked like such an easy solution, but placing the freckles can be a 20-hour job, just to kind of note that. But because you so beautifully said there, Georgia, about it's solutions driven. And I think that we want to steal that. Can we steal that? Because it is
yours.
It's about solutions.
I get articulate at the end, you know, that's when the articulation comes.
Perfect roundup for our questions.
Yeah, so I think we wanted to maybe see if there were any questions that wanted answering. We've got 12 minutes left, so yeah, let's answer some questions, see what the people are saying. In the meantime, did you want to just as a parting one, did you want to say kind of what you guys are planning on doing, or if there's anything that the Institute of Digital Fashion can kind of reveal that's coming up, or anything exciting?
Our space. Well, we've got a physical space in Stratford next to the V&A and LCF and Sadler's Wells, and we're actually taking submissions at the moment for people to apply to be part of our mentorship program. And that is, so we're giving away 3/4 of the space as co-working and mentorship, and that's open for BAME and LGBT plus communities. So yeah, that's super. We're really proud to be kind of delivering a philanthropic part of the Institute. I think that's really important. So
very community driven and very kind of the thread of inclusivity really weaves through it. It's I mean, I've said it 2 million times, but it's all very exciting to hear, and especially like even just me, obviously I know about it, but it's so nice to kind of hear more in depth about how it works and what we can look forward to. So we've got a couple of questions. The first one is, how soon do you see this type of technology being implemented and integrated into the everyday making process in fashion?
I mean, the first thought that comes into my head is that like slowly universities are starting to like listen and have Clo 3D as part of their syllabus, which is really good. I think it does come down to like changing the way people create, and I think that at uni is a really good place to start. I think UAL might be thinking about it. There's a lot of universities in Amsterdam who have Clo 3D as part of their syllabus. So I think that is really important because it's with you as you're growing within your kind of fashion learning almost. you'll choose to take those like digital approaches straight away as you're learning, I think.
The second question, which is very interesting, it's kind of what we were talking about being, democratic, a sort of democratic industry. Does it offer independent designers the same platform as any other big fashion brand?
Yes. I mean, you could technically design and sell a garment within the same day, like if you really wanted to. Because you can,
In terms of budgeting and stuff, sorry to cut you off, because I can imagine as an independent or a smaller designer, you're obviously not going to necessarily have the same budget. Would that affect the kind of outcome or of what you could achieve, or does it kind of affect it less than physical fashion?
I think it affects it less. I mean, the purchase that you would have to make is the software. It's not crazy extensive in price compared to a lot of 3D softwares that are out there. But the main point is the fact that you can teach yourself through YouTube, which is completely free. So that is like a really good like key point of like, I was doing textile design, and I was just like going off on a tangent teaching myself like every day. And if it was like a paid course, I wouldn't have been able to do that as well. But the reason why I could is because there's so much advice there on YouTube, so you can kind of teach yourself. So I think it does offer independent designers a good platform because
I think it's like it mirrors again the reality of the fashion industry with practice and with, as Catty likes to pioneer, it's 5 hard years of kind of grafting and learning, and it's like anything, you have to put in the man hours and time. Like obviously we're working with really highly skilled team that have been working for a long time in the industry, really pushing the boundaries, but right now what it does need is young creatives to also be a part of that. And that's starting the same way you would in fashion. You learn how to pattern cut, learn how to flow 3D, and I think there's lots of innovation within the younger digital makers, and then it's taking the kind of innovation and the craft and artisan and the kind of more timely process, and they're kind of marrying them together. So I think it's like a really good launch pad. It's Clo 3D as well. I've seen one of the questions is what is the software? Yeah,
it's Clo 3D. And then the avatar is called Daz 3D.
So, I mean, that was a really nice question, the one about independent designers. It does definitely feel like it makes it more accessible, whether that be marketing-wise, doing it on social media, which is the next question, or whether that be, kind of financial solution. It seems like it makes it a lot more accessible for people, which is especially important for younger designers, people in university, people starting out, I think it's really amazing.
I think
so someone has said someone has said, is social media a good place to get yourself and your digital work noticed in the industry? How can I make an impression to get a job online? Which I think is a great question, especially when there is such a kind of influx of content online.
I mean, within the digital work, I think if I was to talk from my personal experience with the DigiGirl Instagram page, like so many people have got work from posting their work on that page. I think before it existed, I don't know where I would have gone to find so many like amazing women who work within 3D and design. So it's kind of given people like a no excuse kind of platform. It's like a library of all of these amazing designers. So in answer to the question, it's super important, and also to find communities within the social media of where you can find all of these spheres of work.
And the other thing as well is that there's, it's what, with IDF, we work with working with DigiGirl, and the thing is that there's so many people who are keen to which is one of the reasons why we launched the Institute. There's so many people that are keen to use young, innovative talent and ask them for portfolio pieces or work for, budgets that, couldn't mean you wouldn't even be able to go and get you wouldn't be able to go and get your mocha at lunchtime, It's like, so what we're really pushing against is this kind of low balling, and with the Institute is creating a pathway in which you can effectively budget your work and think about the production of it, the amount of hours that it takes to create, and actually gather a structured way of being able to build out fees and what that is. So creating a kind of regulated industry with one which is currently is seen as a digital quick fix, but also that isn't the same as reality. It isn't. And we've had lots of situations with brands coming up to us talking, wanting us to create, big showcases, 48 garments, and then just saying, well, we've actually got a price from this individual here. Because again, what I was saying earlier is there's no like litmus test of craft and artisan right now. Some digital, they just want digital for digital's sake. And what we're really pushing towards is building a space where you can understand your worth, and I think that's so important for young creatives, or just that working in the fashion industry, which we know has got also an issue with kind of how to structure pay. You work for free and then you get to the top. Well, we're pushing back against that and here for advice, so that you can reach out and ask us about budgeting and pricing, and we can assist with that and really help you to navigate the industry. And I think that's what's really exciting, what we're really proud of, again, is saying that we will be able to support in these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a couple more questions, a few kind of practical ones. Some people are asking if they can watch this again. Yes, you can. All Project Earth Talks will be on Selfridge's YouTube channel 24 hours after the event. T-minus 24 hours. So yes, you can watch it back. And then people are asking again, can we say the software, maybe spell it out, I don't know, or just, I don't know, maybe we can chant it until, in unison.
So
we need to get paid from Glow. We need to retain her.
So the garment simulating software is called Clo 3D, CLO 3D. Or there is another one, which is a sister company, which is called Marvelous Designer. One of them is more geared to 3D designers. One of them is slightly more geared to the fashion industry. Ultimately, they're pretty much the same. They've just got a few different export options. Clo 3D, you can export really nice tech packs. You can export your patterns life size, which is really good. Whereas Marvelous Designer is more about within 3D workflows and animation. And then DAZ 3D, DAZ 3D is the avatar simulating software. And that one is free, which is really good.
Woo, we love freeness. Okay, quickly. So I found this question really interesting. What has been the main opposition to digital fashion you have come across?
I mean, I would.
Have you come across any opposition, or has everyone been very encouraging?
What do you mean? Oh, the pushbacks of it, like people.
Yeah.
Just
so then, like we were talking earlier about the fears and the pushback and the kind of.
I think I think right now, because London, it is we're talking right now because it's London Fashion Week. London Fashion Week is the home place of innovation. It's where everything happens first. We're kind of wild, and we have got this kind of spiraling creativity. And I think right now there's been a massive struggle with how and where support can lie, and how to showcase your physical work as a physical designer, as a physical, that's an old thing. As a garment designer, how do you showcase it digitally? There's no help right now. There's no support, really. I mean, the BFC have created the Digital Fashion Week, which is a website. So that means that's video content. It's not around the kind of it's not the innovation that we're all used to in the industry.
It's not super immersive as well. It's kind of, it's not, I don't think it necessarily highlights. Yeah.
And so I think that the main opposition, I think the pushback is like the how to and where to come. So I suppose what we're saying is that perhaps we're the answer for that. So come and reach out to us, and we will work with your innovative projects, and we will support as well. The
sky is really the limit, guys. It's not just, you're free. You can bring out your creativity in all exciting ways. I think I've said exciting about 5 million times, but that genuinely is the one true emotion that is coming.
Yeah, I just want to say it's really exciting to have you with us. Thank you so much, Georgia.
Thank you.
I'm just so excited. No, thank you guys. This was so interesting for me as well. As you can tell, I'm very excited about it, and it really has kind of opened my eyes and kind of debunked a few myths that I had. And yeah, it's just so interesting to kind of look forward and see what is going to come, and also the not knowing what's going to come. So
I also wanted to
be
say
the pioneers.
I also want to say a massive thank you for Selfridges and just being so ballsy and, you know, really drawing a line in the sand and putting together Project Earth, which has been an extraordinary feat, and going in store and watching online activations. And they are, we're really proud to be in bed with Selfridges and be supported by them. It's wonderful to have them host this. They really are. Thank you. Thank you, Selfridges. I've got a yellow pen. Dark. Sorry, guys.
Like, here we are, the yellow pen. No, it is. It's really amazing to see a kind of a brand take a stand. That rhymed. A brand stand. In this conversation around sustainability. And all of Project Earth has been really interesting and very innovative. So, and thank you everyone for joining us as well. And I hope you learned as much as I did. Thank you so much. Jazz hands.